and that will affect what management must do. So what does the capital market want? Well, the capital market is a really kind of complex object that has a kind of almost schizophrenic existence that finds itself in a pincer movement where it wants increased returns, but it also wants growth from the companies. It also wants kind of stories in the box about how management are going to transform. But the capital market wants consultancy metrics. EVA, MVA, they can all be kind of measures that are used to measure the performance of the company. Companies will talk about, we welcome competition. Well, that's real bunk, really. I've never bought into that rubbish. What companies really want are monopolies. They want abnormal profits and share price appreciation. That's what the shareholders want too. The broader story is the capital market wants companies to make the numbers that they claim they're going to do, because after a shareholder presentation by management, they often say the prospects for next year are X. We expect to see sales grow by Y, blah, blah, blah. It goes on. They expect management to hit the numbers. They also expect management to tell you a good story of how seamlessly they've generated the returns. Except what we're now finding is that there's all kinds of made-up stuff in company accounts. But again, you can trace that back to financialization. But they want to make the numbers and tell a good story. And share ownership is about institutions determining the rules of the game. It isn't about you or I as individuals. We can't turn up to Prudential and say, hey, you're not generating the returns, what are you going to do about it? But my pension fund can turn up and call up Prudential and say, we want to meet you tonight or this afternoon, and they can get a meeting. And then the management is put on kind of notice that they're going to have to generate the returns. And it's the fund managers. And many of you are going to end up as fund managers. You will inevitably end up as fund managers. It's the biggest growth industry. What turns off and on fund managers? Well, if you're interested in this area, read Tony Golding's book. Tony Golding is a guy who worked for Save and Prosper, Fleming's, JP Morgan, until he retired. Pretty senior up. Chapter 6 and 8, great reading about kind of what fund managers expect and how they kind of reach their expectations. And Tony Golding has this kind of great line of fund managers most of the time don't know what they want. Because what they're interested in is what the shareholders may want. But you can summarise from his book that fund managers want the hard stuff. They want good numbers, good ratios. They want size and liquidity. They like companies that are large. They like companies where the shares can be traded easily. So you can shift in and out. They also like companies to have a diversity, not stuck with one customer, and also not stuck with one product. They don't like conglomerates. They also, and you'll notice this once you read kind of the accounts, they're influenced by soft factors. The soft factors, there's always this kind of stuff about the quality of management. In other words, these guys, and I say guys because they often are male, and that's kind of another kind of issue that will raise its head soon. In terms of kind of quality of management, do they deliver the results? They have to be seen to be purposefully doing things, becoming the engine that creates the growth. They have to make exciting promises. Any of you remember Enron? Yes. Enron was a boring company that generated electricity and gas. That's what it did. Then it transformed itself into a dot-com company that traded these futures. They claimed this was exciting. The stock market bought into it. In the end, it goes all wrong. The company goes bust. And it isn't victimless. The people who lose their money are the pension funds and individuals who have invested in them. But there's got to be exciting promises. You can't have, this year we generated 2% growth. Next year we're going to generate 2% growth. We're not going to do anything. We're just going to sit here and watch the money roll in. That's not what's required. That's not what's on the script. Act 1 says quality of management. You've got to be seen to be doing things, exciting promises, and also good investor relations that are telling the investors, I told you we were going to do it, and we've done it. And the fund managers have preferences too. What they want are simple companies, not conglomerates. They want to be able to understand the activity very simply, and they want to know where the returns are coming from. They dislike conglomerates, but the biggest irony of disliking conglomerates is General Electric was probably the largest conglomerate that there was. But it never was regarded as a conglomerate. And stories in a box. I used that last week. I use it now. What most people want is stories in the box, a nice, comfortable kind of story that kind of makes sense. What must management do? Well, management now have to combine financial results, not forgetting the soft stuff. No surprises. If you promise 3% return, let it not be 6%, because that will end up as a surprise, and it will unsettle your investors because they don't quite understand how you generate the returns. Not unless you're Apple, because then everyone says, yes, because everybody wants an Apple product. You've got to manage the market relationship and the soft stuff and the financial results. Relationships with capital markets are really important. Because the people who put management in place and get rid of them are actually the institutional shareholders. Companies like JP Morgan, who don't actually own the shares, but they manage them on our behalf. You have to deliver so the analyst is proved right. Let's not humiliate the fund manager, is probably the subtext of this. In terms of transparency, well, transparent enough. I don't know how you can be transparent when typical accounts now equal something like 300 pages around your report. Now, does anybody actually read all of it? I very much doubt it. There has to be a growth trajectory. The economy grows at 3%. Our giant corporations have grown at 3%. If you can beat that, you're called a growth stock. Banks were called growth stocks. Despite them actually having no business model to generate their own wealth, they have to feed off other businesses. They were called growth stocks. You get the relationship right, things go well. But remember, the capital market is a schizophrenic market. What is good in one period may not be good in another period. Let me give you an example of these 4G licenses that were being auctioned this week in Britain. They've generated, I think, is it 3 billion, 1 billion short of what was expected. Well, in an earlier period, telecom companies were told by shareholders to invest in 3G. And then they punished those telecom companies for paying too much, despite it being an auction. So, the capital market is a lazy partner as well, and also swayed by prejudice. Remember, reasonable and unreasonable, your investor is always reasonable, even when they're not. In terms of kind of results, got to deliver share price. Share price goes down, and questions are asked about the management. Well, they might have gone down because the price of oil has gone up. But nevertheless, there's direct impacts inside the company. In terms of the bull market, here's kind of the fascinating thing. Most of the returns that shareholders made were actually in the increase in the share price and not from financial results inside the company. Why did the price of shares increase? Well, not only was it a bull market, but I gave you the answer earlier. Increasing level of funds from long-term savings were being filtered onto the stock market. We were creating a bubble that was going to burst. And in terms of the results, it's 80% of the returns come from inflating the share prices. Nearly all companies, bar pharmaceutical and tobacco, failed to reach 12 to 15% return on capital employed that the stock market wanted. And there were particular reasons why they couldn't do that, because of market maturity. In terms of kind of consultants, there's always kind of an alibi here.